Have you ever been in a situation where you're doing some work, you're doing a task, you're getting on with something, and the time completely escapes you? You don't realize what time it is. You don't realize where you are. You've forgotten about anyone around you. You've forgotten about anything but that task. Your mind has not wandered. This is something called flow. When you're in that situation, when your mind is in that state, you are in the state of flow. And this is a really, really interesting topic that I have read quite a lot about recently, because I found myself struggling to get into the state of flow and finding myself being quite bouncy in terms of the tasks that I do. So I'm not just sort of focused on one task, rather I'm bouncing from one task to the other, and I'm not being my most productive self. And so I discovered something called flow, which I'm sure we've all been in the state of flow at some point, whether it's when we are studying, whether it's when we are doing something, be it a DIY task, be it just reading, or a task that you really, really enjoy. Now, knowing the optimal conditions to get into to try and encourage flow, and knowing what types of tasks typically lead to getting into that flow state is really, really important to note, because it means that when you are planning your day, or when you're planning to get something done, you can plan it with that in mind, knowing that you want to try to get into that flow state. And so in today's video, I'm going to be talking a bit about flow, and is flow the secret to happiness? Having flow within your day, having just little pinches of time throughout your day, even if it's 30 minutes, 1 hour, knowing that you're in that flow state where nothing else matters except for that task that you are doing. That apparently, according to psychologists and neuroscientists, is the secret to happiness. And I think I agree with it. I think I definitely agree with that statement. If you want to see more from me in terms of productivity, time management, and academic content, then don't forget to subscribe to see more on my channel. I'd absolutely appreciate that, and I think it'd be really interesting to hear what you guys think about flow and the conditions and the times that you feel that you are in a flow state. So this term, the flow state, was coined by a psychologist called Csikszentmihalyi. I got it. It doesn't look like it sounds like that, but his name is Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. He coined this state called the flow state, and I'm going to read out the definition to you, and I'll put it on the screen here. So he says that it is an immersive state of focus that elicits a feeling of contentment, which is why I was saying that it is apparently the secret to happiness, because when you're in that state, during it, you don't feel your emotions, you don't feel anxious, you don't feel that sadness, you don't have anything but feeling happy to do what you are doing. He says that the best moments usually occur when a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. Optimal experience is thus something that we make happen. So it's when you are in that moment where he says the best moments occur when you're stretched to its limits to accomplish something difficult and also worthwhile. So we'll talk about that in a minute. The fact that what it is that you are doing needs to be challenging enough that you are motivated and you'll do that task, but it also needs to be worthwhile. So even though it's difficult, even though you are being pushed to your limits, you know the benefit of doing this task, and that is the key component that we're going to be talking about today. So he defines flow as a state in which people are so involved in an activity that nothing else seems to matter. The experience is so enjoyable that people will continue to do it even at great cost for the sheer sake of doing it. I love that. I love that definition. So you are so involved in this activity. Like I said, it could be studying, it could be working, it could be doing DIY, building something, art, anything, but you are so involved in this activity that nothing else matters, no matter how difficult it is, or no matter what the cost is for you. You are in that position, and you're absolutely loving it. And there's a really, really good TED talk by him that I will leave linked down below. And I watched this maybe last year, maybe even 2 years ago now, I think. And it really, really helped to understand this flow state a bit more, understand the research that he did to be able to define it and to find out how he came to this conclusion. And he talks about his own personal history and his own personal story as well. And I do believe he passed away, I think it was last year if I'm not mistaken. So he definitely has has left like a really big legacy and has shared some really good information that has helped us become better and become more productive selves. I think I definitely recommend that you listen to his TED Talk. It gives you a history about himself and his history and his background and sort of how he came to learn about the flow state and how he came into psychology and how he became a researcher and his personal interests. And I think his story is really compelling. And he passed away unfortunately last year, 2021, and the information that he has shared and just the extensive amount of research that he has done is really, really worthwhile sort of watching and reading. It does help so much to understand your brain, your neuroscience, how you work, how your mind is sort of wired towards being the best self, and how to get to that flow state to be able to be your most productive self. So thinking about flow from a neuropsychological perspective, so this is actually the anatomy of the brain. There is some research that has been done, not very much though, but there has been some that shows that there is a decreased level of activity in the prefrontal cortex when the brain is in the flow state. So during that flow state, when you're at your maximal productivity and nothing else matters around you, your prefrontal cortex is slowing down. It's taking a back seat. Now, to understand why that may happen, you need to understand what the prefrontal cortex is, what it does. It's important, and its role is in higher cognitive functions. So this includes things like memory, things like consciousness, and allows you to have an explicit state of mind. So whilst we are in this moment, it allows me to think, it allows me to pull from what I know, and it allows me to be present in the moment. So where I am right now, thinking about everything that's around me and things that I need to do. However, in the state of flow, it goes into underdrive, so it becomes quietened down in terms of its activity. And this means that I am no longer in that hyper sort of aware state. So it downregulates and it actually becomes a lot less active. And what that does is it can distort time, so it means that you think, well, you feel like time is going really slow, even though it may be 1 or 2 hours later. It also reduces what we call the inner self-critic. So it's, you know, the thoughts when you're doing something and you think, oh, why am I doing this, and I shouldn't do this, and I'm not doing this properly, and I'm X, Y, and Z. It actually reduces that, and that is why you're able to be in that flow state. You're able to just keep on going without doubting yourself and without stopping every 5 seconds. And it also reduces your self-consciousness. So as I mentioned earlier, being in that flow state means that you're not really thinking about anything else around you. And by reducing the activity of the prefrontal cortex, you're able to also reduce that self-consciousness as well. These are all really bad things on a normal basis, but during flow, they're really good things to reduce. So Mihai gave 8 characteristics that are descriptive of flow, and I'll list them here for you, and again I'll read them out just so I don't have to memorize it. So the first is that you have complete concentration on the task, so you know exactly what you're doing, you're just getting on with it. The second is clarity of goals and reward in mind and immediate feedback, so you know what you are aiming for and you know what the benefit is afterwards. The third is the transformation of time, so when you're in the flow state, time either speeds up or it slows down, but you are unaware of the normal pace of time. The fourth is that the experience is intrinsically rewarding, so whatever it is that you're doing, you feel good about doing it. The fifth is effortlessness and ease. You're just getting on with it. Even if it's challenging, even if it seems like a hard task, you're just getting on with it. The sixth is there is a balance between challenge and skill. Now this is a really, really good one, and this is something I mentioned earlier. You need to make sure that whatever it is that you are doing, so when you plan your day, when you're planning your tasks, make sure the task isn't too easy, but also make sure the task isn't too difficult. So you need to be able to achieve the task with some friction, but you also need to be able to achieve it at the end. So you're not giving yourself a task that is impossible to achieve, rather a task that has enough challenge, but enough skill that you are able to use to achieve that. The next, number 7, is actions and awareness are merged, losing self-conscious rumination. So your mind is not aware of what's going on. You are just unaware, but you're doing the action at the same time. And then number 8, there is a feeling of control over the task. So whilst you're in that task, You feel like you know what you're doing. You feel in control. You are the driver. You are driving that car. You are moving it forward, and you feel like you are in control, because there's a lot of times that we do things and we don't feel like we know what we're doing. We feel out of control. When you're in the flow state, you feel like you have control. You know what it is that you are doing, even if it's challenging, but you feel like you have control. So those are 8 characteristics. Now, bear these characteristics in mind when you plan your day. Now, I wanted to talk about flow because I think it's really important to, when you are planning your day, when you're setting yourself goals and tasks, you need to think to yourself, is this a task that I could possibly get into a flow state during? So is this a task where I'm setting myself a good amount of challenge, a good level of skill? Is this a task that is encouraging? Is it one that will help me reach my goals? Is it one where I know the reward that I'm going to achieve and that I'm going to be able to get afterwards? If the answer to those things are no, 99% most likely you will not achieve a flow state during that task. Of course, you can still get it done, but you'll get it done reluctantly. You might procrastinate, it might take you longer than you need to, but you will get it done in the end. But you won't be able to get into that blissful flow state if these criteria are not met. So just take a second, take a moment, and think about a time when you were in the flow state. Maybe recently, in the past week or two. Is there a time that you were in the flow state? If yes, what was the task that you were doing? Were you doing something that was a bit challenging? That was something that required you to, get your head down and just think about it, but you knew that if you got it done, it would be rewarding to you. And I think if I think about myself, I would probably say that I was in the flow state maybe 2 weeks ago when I was thinking about a course that I wanted to develop and just the different chapters and what I wanted to write. And honestly, it probably was an hour or two that went past, and I just was really in this state of thinking, and I felt challenged, but also I knew that if I thought about it enough, I could get it done. And I was in the flow state, and I actually came out of the state and I said to myself, I actually explicitly said that I was in the flow state. I noticed that I hadn't been in that state in a while. And it makes such a difference with our productivity and how much we're able to get done if we're able to get into that state. So I think I'm gonna stop this video here, and I'm gonna do a part 2 on optimal conditions to get into a flow state, and also how to induce flow. So conditions that mean that you are setting yourself up, and also how to induce flow. So things that you can do to help you get into that flow state. So I'll do a part 2 on this video, but I hope that through this video you were able to gain a bit of an understanding as to what flow is, what it might look like, and just try to think about instances where you might have been in that flow state yourself, the instances where you might have been in a situation where you're trying to get into that flow, but you don't know why you can't get there. So hopefully this was a bit of an introduction. It will be a part 1. I'll do a part 2 as well to follow up on this video, where I'll talk a bit more about the more specific things that you can look out for, which should hopefully help you with your productivity and reducing your procrastination. Let me know in the comments down below if you have been in a flow state before, if you find that you are someone who can get into flow really easily, or someone who has never experienced flow. Trust me, if you have never experienced flow, it is something that you need to try to experience, because it is a drug. You will never ever go back. You will keep on trying to get into that flow state, which will make your planning and your goal setting, I think, more efficient and more transparent. If you like this video, please press the subscribe button to see more from me, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.